welcome back. We will discuss what is happening in DeFi, what's going on. We will explore together why DeFi is a paradigm shift in the financial industry as we know it today. All right, guys, and welcome back to On-DeFi. And in On-DeFi, we'll talk with the influencers and the people that matter in the crypto space, and especially in the decentralized financial space. And we're talking to the people that make this space happen. And today we have Mona from Melon Port. And Melon Port is basically one of the founding mamas, I call it founding mama of decentralized finance. She's basically, when I was working at Cyber Capital, the crypto hedge fund I was working for, I already followed the project very closely because we were like, we want to decentralize the fund because we don't want to deal so much with all the regulations, all the things that come around it. What if we can wrap that in smart contracts? And Melon Port is actually doing that. So they're making basically a plug to play, like a one-click hedge fund. And I also cover this in the DeFi 201 course. And Mona can tell much more about this in her today in her interview. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to talk about how she got started in DeFi as a DeFi entrepreneur, how Melon Port evolved, and what's ahead for Melon Port. Right, Mona. So how did you get started in DeFi? I think most people probably know who you are. That watch my channel, but maybe tell a little bit about yourself and then how you got started.
Sure. Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on your show. I think I stumbled into DeFi a little bit by accident in a sense. My background is in traditional finance, and the last thing I did before founding Melon, or tried to do, I should say, because I actually failed, was trying to launch a long-short equity hedge fund after having been in finance for about 14 years. Feeling pretty confident with myself, feeling like I knew it all, never having failed at anything professionally. And I thought, okay, yeah, how hard can it be to set up a hedge fund? You know, I had a seed investor and so on and so forth. And it was an absolute disaster. You know, the headaches that you probably suffered when you had South Capital were very, very prominent for me. It's a problem that all small to medium-sized managers face. I think when I worked at Goldman and Jaber previously, such large institutions who can literally outsource this operational administrative burdens to, you know, operational staff, so that the kind of front end office or the investment professionals don't have to deal with that. I really took that for granted. And having to set up a fund myself, I saw firsthand how the asset management engine works. I was completely shocked. I was like, we're in the 21st century. We're talking about driverless cars and we still book trades on pen and paper. You know, what is going on here? You know, so there seems to be a disconnect. Like every single sector has been disrupted by technology except for finance. So anyway, that's a little bit of a long introduction, but I wound down the fund after a year and I thought this is useless because I'm basically spending all my time doing operational admin stuff. And what I really love doing is investing in trading. So let me just, you know, if I can't do that, then I'm going to take a year out. I'm going to enjoy life. I took a plane to Brazil. I was sitting on a beach reading an article about Bitcoin. Then that drove me to Ethereum. And then I thought, oh my God, you know, Crypto Valley is at my doorstep because I lived in Zurich at the time. Took a plane back. I was like, there's something really cool happening here. How can we be a part of this? I want to jump on this wave. I can take my year off some other time. Immersed myself into Crypto Valley, learned as much about smart contracts. I have no technical background whatsoever. Learned as much about smart contracts and Ethereum as possible. In the end, I just made there was one thing that was very obvious to me, and I know you're going to touch on this later. Everything ultimately is going to have some kind of tokenized form. Every asset we know of today, whether it's equities, bonds, S&P futures, derivatives, etc., will have a tokenized form. And this was my conviction since beginning of 2016. And if everything is going to have a tokenized form, then we can now rebuild financial infrastructure and automate everything. All the operational administrative processes, which by the way, were initially designed to protect us. They're not bad processes in terms of what they hope to achieve. They're designed to protect investors in funds and fund managers from making mistakes. But ultimately, it's just painful the way it's implemented. So we can now automate all of this stuff and implement it much, much faster. And that's, for me, was when the light bulb moment happened. And I was like, right, let's do this. Now that I understand how the asset management engine works, let's try and do this, on Ethereum.
Super interesting. And yeah, I must say that what you guys have developed is super amazing. And as I said before, when I was working at Cyber Capital, it was basically I was working private equity before, and then I became an IT consultant, and then I was like, wow, this whole crypto thing. I wanted to build some stuff, but I saw like, it's really early. So the best thing that I can do is probably join a fund and then pick the interesting projects and learn and network and build a fund IT infrastructure for them. Because in beginning 2017, the fund was already live and they were doing everything in Excel. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I think we can completely automate this. So what I did, I was pulling all the data from all the different APIs and I was putting that in one sheet. And then we would create NAVs every week. We had this pretty extreme schedule of we created an NAV every week and then communicated this to our fund administrator. And that whole process in the beginning was via Excel. And that was a headache. That was like 1 day's work of time because we had quite some assets and it was kind of hard, like, to how do we rebalance everything? We had like a lot of security headaches as well.
And then you have the hedges and the options and derivatives and futures, and they're all measured in different ways and bring in different layers of complexity. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I can certainly relate to that.
It's a nightmare. And then I saw Melon Port, and we actually also took a position in Melon Port token, which also has amazing token economics and everything I liked about the Melon protocol already back then. But yeah, tell maybe a little bit about the evolution, because the Melon Port, the protocol itself, and now Avant Finance, I see. And you evolved, basically you had already something live, but then you basically re-engineered everything, and now you're gonna deployed a really cool new version, but even newer and better version is coming up, I heard.
Yeah, so like history is, so Melon Port built the V1 of Melon. The Melon Protocol is the open source decentralized protocol which you have played around with. And Melon Port was the company that built V1 and did the token sale in 2017, February 2017. We had a 2-year mandate to build V1. We built it, we delivered it on time, on budget, and then we decentralized it. I think we were the first DeFi protocol in history to decentralize a protocol. And then we stepped away and we handed over control to the Melon DAO, which has been in operation now for nearly 18 months. And the DAO has 3 functions. One is to give projects building on Melon grants in Melon tokens, or if there are no good projects, to burn the tokens. It's also there to upgrade or suggest upgrades to the network, and also to adjust network parameters. Mm-hmm. So since being on the mainnet V1, a few projects received grants from the Melon DAO, and in October last year, after we had taken a break, I had taken a break. I sort of worked part-time, but I worked for the protocol, but it wasn't like as intense as before. And then in September we came back and we said, well, why don't we make proposal to the Melon DAO and propose to become the lead developer, because it felt like with all the new DeFi protocols that were suddenly emerging, there was so much more that Melon could become. In 2017, when we put out the initial roadmap, there was 0x, there was Kyber Network, there was Oasis Dex. That was pretty much it in DeFi, Maker and Augur. But in 2019, you saw the explosion: Compound, Aave, Flash loans, derivatives, Open, UMA. Oh my God, it's also exciting. So basically we thought, wow, we have built the beginnings of a great infrastructure. It's very hard to use. V1, I think you played around with V1. It was so hard to use. The user experience was a nightmare. So we put forward a proposal to basically take Melon to the next level with all of this cool DeFi stuff happening. So basically connect the pipes in the background to make something much, much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And we also said, we're going to have to rebuild this. No one's using the protocol. No one used it in the first year. It was almost unusable. And so we said, let's rebuild the interface from the ground up, which was our February release, V1.1. And that's, I think, the one you said you saw a big improvement in.
Yes.
Our usage increase has been since that point. Since the protocol has become, usable, we've seen, a large tick up in number of funds, number of investors, number of investments, and people asking questions, and also the community just being revived. I think they got a little bit bored last year because of the lack of updates and stuff. So the V1.1 was a big success, but we don't stop there. It's still not as easy as we would like to use, and there's still so many more integrations we want to do. So we're working towards a big release, hopefully towards the end of this year. This release will also require some re-architecting. We're making re-architecting certain parts of the protocol, making it much more flexible. We're also trying to bear in mind that gas costs are very high, so trying to simplify the code wherever possible to reduce friction on the manager and the investors. We're looking to make, for the first time, we're moving away from just plain vanilla assets, and we're also looking to integrate lending. Right now, we're working on compound and shy lending adapters, so you'll be able to make loans from a fund. We're also making the architecture possible to integrate with derivatives in general. So that required, some changes, and that will make integration with other derivatives protocols much, much easier in 21. So there's a lot happening. We've been listening to all the user feedback out there. People want dollar-denominated funds or USDC-denominated funds. People want, certain features, and we're sort of prioritizing those features and trying to make them happen as soon as possible so that we can unblock, new funds coming to Melon.
Yeah, that's amazing. What I really like about the current setup, and I hope that probably that's going to stay in V2 as well, is I think the base layer that you now created. Like if I now say I want to create a fund, I put in the name, put in the assets that I want to trade, and then you get this step-by-step program. It's basically like a very simple walkthrough. And also in the course, basically everybody can now start a hedge fund. Like you can, everybody can do it. Yeah. It's really straightforward. And I would even say that right now I'm potentially joining another fund, and like we're having the same issues as we had back in 2017, and I don't see any improvement for crypto funds. Still not. It's still.
If anything, it's worse. If anything, it's worse for crypto funds than for
the lawyers getting more expensive. There's more people that want to talk to you.
Fund administrators freak out when you tell them, it trades 24/7. How.
Yes. Yeah, I had to port all my trades to like securities in the background. So what I had to do is like all the assets, when there's a trade, it cannot trade against Bitcoin to Euro. It cannot trade against Bitcoin to Ether. It has to go from Bitcoin to Euro, from Euro to Ether. Yeah. Of course, you don't do that, but you have to. And that's why I think Melon Port can be, in my opinion, like why is there still a need for a central fund administrator? Can maybe not be that Melon Port is this decentralized fund administrator that regulators or somewhere in a jurisdiction might say, well, you put your fund in Melon Port, and because you structured all your smart contracts like this, you are the only one that has the key. So if there's money gone or something happens, you did it. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, personally, that's I think the whole point of DeFi in my view. I think we can finally do away with financial intermediaries. I think it's a great question. It's not limited to just fund management. If you think about DeFi in general, what it does, so let's first of all think, what is a fund administrator? What is a custodian? They're a financial intermediary that helps establish trust between the investor and the fund manager. That's in fund management. So the custodian's job is to make sure if you buy Apple stock for your investors, you're buying them in the fund's name, not putting them in your personal name. The fund administrator makes sure that if I invest $100 million in your fund, you're spending that money on US equities because that's what it says in the investment memorandum. You're not going off to Saint-Tropez and buying a yacht, with my capital. So those intermediaries are there to help establish trust. They actually have a real there is a real need for them, because there are dishonest people in this world, and we need to make sure that, for markets to work, trust has to be established. So not disputing the need for them in traditional world, but now we have technology that can automate that. That's the beauty of blockchain.
Yeah.
Smart contracts can now help automate trust between the investor and the fund manager in fund management.
So do you see a world where we don't need fund administrators anymore? Or?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, actually, I see a world where we don't need any financial intermediaries. I mean, we're probably a few years away from that, but absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that they have survived for way too long, and they've survived because of the lack of technology in finance.
Yeah, walled gardens, and we're also talking about in the course is basically there is bureaucracy, and actually fintech is this walled garden IT and bureaucracy, and with DeFi you still have a layer of bureaucracy, but very small,
Yeah.
and the rest is just protocols. Yeah, I really see a bright future for that. And also when I'm also a consultant, when I advise other funds, I always look into Melon Port, and I think this with this new upgrade that you guys did, this becomes a reality. And hopefully also with V2 we can also have other cool features in there. I really hope to see I don't know how much you can release of that, but when is there maybe a post coming out of it, or when do you tend maybe to have a roadmap for that, or maybe some features that you can release on
I think we'll start teasing in a few weeks around what's coming. But we generally like to keep our head down, under promise, over deliver. So we'll see. But yeah, the team is working very hard day and night. I don't think it's August and we're all still at our desks. I mean, I know there's COVID, but in general, I think everyone is. I think that everyone is heads down, really. Very motivated and very excited about V2, and we're just powering ahead.
Yeah, that's super excited. I also look very, very much forward to that, what's ahead. And in terms of the team, I've been following the project for some time, and there was suddenly this movement of Melon Port, and then in the traditional finance, you saw these people with black jackets walking inside of the boardrooms and all that. Yeah, I loved it. Really like it. Is that culture still alive and kicking, or how's the culture?
Yeah, so that was the Melon Council. Those are the DAO members. They were the founding DAO members. So it's a good point you brought up. So yes, I think they're still alive, and those limited edition jackets, they're still around, and they're in the closet, ready to come out as soon as there's another conference when that world comes back. But in the meantime, I don't know if you remember the governance design. I'm sure you've read about it, but our governance design is a little bit different than other projects, because it's the council, or the DAO, is made up of, in order to become a member of the DAO that governs the protocol, you either have to be technically skilled, because we believe that people voting on upgrades and network parameters, etc., should be technical, or you have to be a user representative. That means you have to be provably a large user on the network, because otherwise, if you're just a token holder, token holders could be anyone. They could be malicious. They could be not competent to make certain technical decisions. You have certain conflicts of interest that can arise, and so on and so forth. Also, we felt that in many kind of DeFi protocols, the users, they often go overlooked. They don't get represented. And so our governance is really designed to protect the user, because the tokenomics already protects everyone else. So the user is center of our governance. But we never actually, a lot of people are asking recently, how come the council didn't add user representatives yet? And it's a funny story. It's because we didn't have users until recently. I mean, we had about $250,000 of TVL locked in the network in the first year, but to be honest with you, it was mostly family and friends, and it's not real users. But what we've really started to see since February is real, and so I think now it's time. We recently published a blog post on how to nominate yourself for election onto the DAO. We've seen some applications come through, and I'm really excited about growing the DAO.
Nice, it sounds really amazing, and I think same as like the DeFi that you guys actually are miles ahead of that. I also with this token economic model that I also still need to learn a little bit more about. And I didn't know that I thought it was via Aragon, like you could just stake the tokens and Aragon, but it's barely then more complicated.
The DAO is on Aragon. The DAO runs on Aragon. We do all of our voting, or most of our voting, on Aragon.
Okay, but then you can just use Aragon, right? Or Aragon is already quite technical, you mean? Or...
Yeah, so yeah, actually it's not. They have a nice user interface, and you know, you don't have to be technical to use it, but the setting up of it. But the things we're voting on, like protocol upgrades, are quite technical, which is why the people voting on, you know, if you're voting on whether to upgrade the protocol to V2, it's a good idea if somebody technical can review the contracts and make sure that there's nothing malicious in there, etc., before voting on the upgrade.
Super interesting. Yeah, I think that's also Aragon is an amazing project, and they also developed so much more. And I think it's so smart that you integrate this into your governance already so early on. You saw this so early on, and I think some other projects that are now trying to make their own governance protocols, they're basically then just launch a forum and then do votes. There's some very interesting developments, but I think Aragon is actually pretty good actually for launching a governance.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you asked about the tokenomics. You know, the tokenomics is very simple. It's a buy and burn model. So when you consume asset management units, so you pay for certain things like setting up a fund or investing in a fund, you just pay gas. You pay the gas as you would in Ethereum. It goes out of your wallet in ETH. But then in the background, there's a smart contract that converts the ETH into Melon and then burns it. So you have a direct sync, and what it means is you directly link the total, the number of users on the network to the value of the token. And that's really key, because that means as a token holder, you're incentivized to go out and tell people use this protocol, because the more users on the protocol, the more the more value the token has. Now, recently we had you probably followed the MIP 7 Melon Improvement Proposal number 7 that was made by Tom Shaughnessy, Ceteris Paribus, and Chris Meneses from Moonchain Capital. There's been a proposal being made to upgrade the tokenomics to also capture assets under management, so to charge a fee based on the total value locked into the network. And that's interesting. You know, the council are discussing that. We have a working group that's discussing the tokenomics, and I think that would be also quite a nice upgrade if that goes through.
I think that's more than fair, to be honest. Like I was a bit, I saw the token model, and I also launched my own fund in the course that I gave. I do that, and I think it cost me like $150 or $200 to set up a fund.
Yeah,
it's pretty cheap.
That it used to be less actually, but because of the gas prices.
Yeah, now, I understand, but still, I still think that's really cheap. Like if you're serious about setting up a fund, I think it's pretty cheap. But I think. So these, maybe I should put a proposal. I think that if I see these contracts, like if you have these maybe verified contracts by by a fund administrator that connects with some of these contracts, that you maybe pay an extra fee. Because like if I'm a fund, if I really like, okay, I'm going to set up this fund with this group, and I have these contracts that are actually connected to my fund administrator, I would be happy to pay a couple of $1,000s for that, because like that's a lot of value that you provide them, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I always think, you know, would I have been willing to pay it when I was in my old, you know, when I had my fund? Would I have been willing to pay a couple of $1,000s a year for someone to automate the whole process? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I needed to hire 2 people to help me to manage with it. So $2,000 in the grand scheme of things per year is nothing.
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit more upfront, but then I think you probably are you also talking with maybe some regulated fund administrators? So like, hey, wait a minute, we can really almost do nothing, which no offense to fund administrators, but they press on a button, and that mostly is it, unfortunately. Some of them also do a lot of work, like checking everything. But I think if they really can just only press a button, then their costs would go down a lot, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have actually had some conversations with fund administrators in the past. I mean, it's still quite new and scary for them, but you know, they definitely listen.
are they not scared? Like maybe, oh shit, I'm losing business.
I think that's probably where the conversations stop. At some point they stop. But we stopped having them actually as well. But in the beginning, we used to be quite open-minded and speaking to everyone. And after a while, we realized, hey, like as soon as they realized that this is a bit disruptive, they seem to become less interested. So we stopped wasting our time.
Yeah, I saw the same thing also in traditional software development when I was still doing that. It's like, hey, I can actually fully automate this. And I was talking to one of the managers, and then he went, oh, this is really possible. And it was like the intention of it went away a little bit. So you can definitely see that happening. But I think the most important thing is that it needs to come from the fund side. So more funds need to just onboard it, get the capital in there, and then there will be fund administrators say, hey, via the console, hey, you click this button and you actually have a fund administrator from Switzerland or from the Netherlands or from another country that actually puts a approval stamp on it. I think that is possible. Do you think that is still needed? I think that's an immediate thing, or do you think?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think the movement will definitely come from the fund managers, like you said. Mm-hmm. I think that's certainly what we're seeing. There's people who have real demand for something like this. They're really fed up of the time it takes, the cost it costs, and everything. And even the time it takes to set up a bank account these days is getting ridiculous. So everything is just like you see an opportunity and then you can't move on it in a fund capacity for 12 months. It's ridiculous. So we're seeing people we never thought would step into the Melon universe because they were so traditional. We're even seeing, I spoke to a frustrated manager yesterday who, the first time I spoke to him, I was like, he's so traditional, he'll never move to Melon. And yesterday he said, I'm so fed up.
Wow.
He said, tell me what I need to do. So I think it's happening. And like you said, it's driven from the need. But, the thing that I'm the most passionate about and the thing that I'm really, really excited about with Melon is that I really believe that before now, it was only the funds that had a lot of financial backing that could launch and prove themselves. Yeah. And now, because technically you could just launch a fund and be your only investor in it for a year or two, prove yourself on the blockchain, transparent, verifiable, easy, everything is there for you to see. And prove yourself for 1 or 2 years, and then go to an investor and say, hey, look, this is my blockchain-based track record. You can't dispute it. Every trade I ever did is in here. This is my CV. This is what it is. And you empower these guys suddenly, because you know what it's like. You go to have I can share my experience. When I used to go to try and fundraise, full disclosure, I had a $20 million fund. They said, and I needed to get to 150 to be able to kind of hire staff to help me and kind of survive. And I sort of was going around to investor, and they kept saying, yeah, we need to see a 2-year track record before we invest. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I can't survive 2 years if I don't have the capital. And then I go to them and I say, and then they say, or if you raise, money before like 200 million, come back and speak to us because we don't like to be the biggest investor in a fund. So it's like this chicken and egg situation. And, basically what ends up happening is that most small funds end up eventually closing down, within 12 months of launching, because they just can't cope with the cost and the time and the energy drain that it is. So the thing I'm really excited about is empowering the long tail, empowering the 20,000, a fund that starts at $20,000 and becomes 10 million within 2 years or 3 years. That's the success story that I want to be showing off about in 5 years from now.
That sounds super amazing. I think that's a very good vision and very needed, because I think if we democratize these features, I think also the scams, etc., go away. And the Melon Port, basically, if people give you money, yeah, you can trade with it, but you cannot really withdraw it, right? You cannot really
no, exactly, yeah, it's designed as much as possible. I mean, obviously it's not perfect, but it's designed as much as possible to protect the investor from malicious activity of the fund manager.
Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to everything. And what do you think about the whole DeFi, the explosion that's happening now? I think you already saw that it was coming, or was for you also a big surprise that the sudden explosion in users and volumes?
I've been a believer of it for such a long time. I never knew when or how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I have to say, I did not expect it to boom when it boomed. Really wasn't expecting it in March. I actually was sitting there going, the world looks awful. The world is on lockdown. Everything is terrible. I was actually thinking it's definitely not going to happen now. and we need to buy time and be prepared for this to take 2 years longer. And actually, it seems to be happening. I guess that's always the way. Things. The rallies always happen when you least expect it, and the sell-offs also tend to happen when you least expect it. And I'm just glad that this boom, it feels good. I'm glad that this one is powered by DeFi. I'm wary though, whenever there's a boom, there's also a lot of nonsense that pops up, cheap sells and stuff like that. So I'm, I think everyone I think everyone should be doing their research and homework carefully on the stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
In our experience, in my experience, those kind of high yields and whatever, they don't last forever, so. Yeah. So it's a fun time, but one has to know when to get out.
It does accelerate innovation, I think, in a way that there's like more users, like these protocols like Melon Protocol, like yourself.
Yeah,
it accelerates things.
Yeah, it's great for that. Yeah, and it's almost like a repeat of what we saw in 2017, except this time for DeFi.
It's a bit more complex, but I always say, also in my course, I say this DeFi experiment, this decentralized finance, what we're actually doing right now is all really, really cool. But I think you also like maybe confirm or disconfirm if you also saw this in when you started Melonport. If we don't get real world assets on the blockchain, if we don't get other use cases and actually generating value, we can, there's no sense what we're doing. Then it's just
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you. And I'm personally really excited about the work that's being done to bring real world assets to the blockchain. I think that the biggest challenge or setback for projects trying to do that has been regulatory. But I think and I hope that using synthetic products like UMA, synthetics, and other kind of similar projects help ease the way there, because that's kind of it's less obvious what that would be treated as, and I think that we'll be seeing the possibility of trading things like S&P futures and Apple and Tesla stock on chain sooner than later, and hopefully in liquid forms.
Yeah. What do you think then about Abra? Abra was actually, I didn't know much about them, but I think they were a little bit more centralized, but they were doing trading of stocks, etc., etc. And then they were doing that, but they got a little bit of a fine, I think. But when I look at UMA and other protocols, I know that they're really, really doing also a good job, and they seem a bit more decentralized. What do you think, Abra?
Yeah, I didn't know Abra too much, actually. I did hear about that SEC fine, and I mean, it's no secret that regulators, SEC, etc., is all very, very paranoid about security issuances and stuff like that. So I think the more decentralized these things are, probably the better, in a sense, because no one can shut them down and no one can control them. So I mean, that's why I'm pretty positive on the protocol side of things. Anyone can launch any product. It doesn't have to be UMA being the issuer or Abra being the issuer, but you want to get to a stage where someone anywhere can just issue an asset that reliably tracks the price of something in the traditional world. Yeah,
and let's make that happen. And I think I also have to go to the next meeting now. Like, thank you very much for your time. Do you have anything you want to close off with, or any more things you want to communicate to listeners?
No, I'm very excited. Actually, I'm so happy to hear that you recently launched a fund and did a tutorial on maybe. I mean, I'd love to follow the tutorial myself. Maybe you can tell me where to find it, and
definitely. I'll put that in the links below. So all the information about
Right.
Mona and about Melon Port will be in links below. Where's the best way that people can follow you or find you?
So we're available on Twitter. It's at Melon Protocol. Also, same with Medium. And you can join our Telegram channel, which is still under Melon Port, because I don't know why, but the name was not easy to change once we decentralized. But also there's a Discord channel which is completely community led, and and we're pretty easy to find, so nice. We're always happy to hear from users and innovative minds.
Yeah, so I in the course I teach you how to basically start your own hedge fund in 5 minutes, and as Mona already said, basically prove your track record, and maybe in the future you will be your own hedge fund manager if you stack those gains, and if you really are very good at trading or at managing or seeing certain assets, when to add or remove them in your portfolio, then maybe you can everybody can become their own hedge fund basically. So I think that's a very cool future, and also for professional hedge funds, I think also they would also gain a lot from using Melon Port. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what's ahead, and thank you very much. All the information is below. Also a link to the course where I explain how to use Melon Ports as well. Thank you very much, guys, and speak to you in the next interview. Thank you. Bye.